Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of Fire Emblem Fates Quickies. Now today's a special episode since we won't actually be covering a chapter or a paralogue. Instead, we will be going over some overall strategy when it comes to pairing our units in Conquest, and we'll be showing what all pairings we will be doing for Quickies itself. Before we get started, I want to thank some people for their help in the creation of this video. First of all, I want to thank Outrank for helping me with some meta choices for these picks. I really was stuck on some units like Ignatius and Dyer as to what to do for them, but then I asked Outrank and he thankfully came to help me out. I really want to thank him for his help. And also I would like to thank Izumi, the creator of the Discord bot known as OifiBot, for creating such a useful bot that lets me do a bunch of stuff way easier. It would take me so much time to look up these child growths and whatnot if it wasn't for Izumi. Thank you so much for your time and creating this bot. Alright, let's move on to the basics of how pairings work. If you're familiar with how child units in Genealogy and Awakening work, you should note a couple of things. Child units in Fates are determined by their dad, not their mom. In this game, there's one child unit for each male non-corn sexual unit. Corn sexual units refer to units that are only able to get married to corn. For example, that would be units like Shura, Fuga, Gunter. Those are some male corn sexuals. Aside from those units, all male units have their own designated child. There is one exception to this, being Azura. Azura, and of course female Corrin. Azura and female Corrin are the only female units that have their own designated children, namely Shigure and Kana. Child units always are a combination of their parents. In Fates, child units inherit their parents' stat lines and their skills. Each child unit gets one skill from their dad, one skill from their mom. You can tell which skill they're going to get by seeing what the bottom skill in their skill order is. That's going to be the skill that you're going to be getting from them. For example, if Felicia had a kid, she would give that kid Rally Resistance. Now, if you go to a paralogue and you find that you didn't put your skills in the right order, for example, maybe I accidentally put Live to Serve at the bottom of my order, and suddenly I go to my paralogue and maybe Felicia is Kana's mom, and I see that Kana has Live to Serve, and that was an accident. No problem, just exit the paralogue, reorder the skills, and go back in. It'll be fixed the way you want it. Now, just like in every other game, Fate kids have predetermined classes. These classes are almost always the same classes as their dad. However, there are a few exceptions. Percy, Shigure, Midori, and Forest are all going to have their own classes, which we will go over. Child units also start off at a level that corresponds to which chapter you're on. Before or on chapter 10, they are all level 10, and they gain 1 to 2 levels each chapter from then on, and promote along with the enemies in their paralogs after chapter 19. After chapter 19, if you recruit a child unit, you'll see that they have an item called an Offspring Seal in their inventory. This will let you pick their promotion path and still keep them at a higher level. So, for example, if you recruit Sophie really late, who is a Cavalier, you might be able to promote her to a high enough level to get her some skills. If you promote her late enough, you might be able to level her, let's say, using an Offspring Seal to level 7 Paladin. And if you do something like that, they will get all skills that they would learn on the way. So, for example, in that case, Sophie would learn the level 5 Paladin skill, namely Defender. Now that we've set a baseline for what to expect with child units, let's talk about paralogs and paralog strategy. Each child unit has its own paralog that unlocks as soon as you get an S support between the dad and a female unit. So, for example, Nina's paralog doesn't open if you do male Corn X Niles, for some pretty obvious reasons. Of course, Azura is always an exception to this. Each paralog has its own treasures to offer outside of the child units themselves. Many paralogs have dropped items from enemies, and a couple of them have chests and villages with loot in them. When I go over a unit, I'll also go over the treasures available in their paralog. When you do a paralog, you really want to do what I like to call paralog chaining. This is when you complete a paralog, and in that paralog you get enough support points to get an A-ranked support pair over to the S rank. Then you do the next paralog, and then you get another pair to S rank, and then you try to chain as many paralogs as you can to get a huge advantage on the enemies. I like to do this right after chapter 15. You have access to all the fathers in the game except for Xander, and since Sigbert's paralog is not worth playing, this isn't much of a loss. However, there are 2 exceptions to this. I highly recommend doing Kana and Ophelia's paralog as soon as you get them. Now that we've gone over everything necessary, let's go over our parents. Parents, as you can see, each parent has their own child. Now, there's some baselines too. If there's a pairing that has purple text, that means that's going to be the one that I will be going for in Quickies. Blue text all across the slideshow is going to be hint text. So as you can see on the top right, you can see an example right there. Bases won't be shown for the units because they change each chapter. I love me some dummy thick base stats, but when the base stats change every chapter, it's not that feasible to show what it's going to be. If you do want to figure out what it's like, just look it up. It's actually very easy to find this kind of information. Alright, let's go over our rating scale. Now, each pairing is going to have a color assigned to it. You'll be able to see how this works real soon. Purple means that that's going to be the pairing that we will be using in Quickies. Green means that it's really ideal. Red means that it's not that good. Yellow means that it's okay. Please remember this is all entirely personal opinion. If you have a better suggestion for a pairing or some other suggestion just with anything, please let me know in the comments section. Alright, starting off with Kana. If you're used to how good Morgan is in Awakening, Kana will sadly be a bit of a disappointment. Kana is nowhere near as flexible as you might imagine due to Fate's lower overall stats and more specifically Conquest's limited resources. Regardless, Kana's personal Draconic Air lets her heal 30% of her max HP each turn when she has a Dragonstone equipped. This makes her a really good Dragonstone tank. Dragonstones, if you remember, are magical weapons that have a lot of might and defensive bonuses and cannot double. This means that for the ideal builds, you want to stack as much magic as possible. Some mothers that you will see showing up often are Elise, Mozu, and Charlotte. Elise is your typical great magical mother. Elise gives a magical child as much magic and speed as she can possibly muster. Mozu is a great just overall mother because she gives children access to aptitude, and Charlotte is a great mother because she gives the dad a great pair up in terms of 8 strength and 5 speed, which is something you really can't overstate, and also gives the child a bunch of strength and speed and HP. Anyways, going back to Kana. Felicia Kana is the Kana that we'll be creating because Felicia and Korn have a very fast support, and Felicia's personal will also help Korn in specific. Her personal, if you remember, lets your main character take 2 less damage and deal 2 more damage when she's in a pair up with him. Actually, yeah, I forgot something real quick. Kana's Paralog is one that you want to go to real quick, because if you've done properly, you can access it right after Chapter 10. Paralogs scale reasonably well forwards, but they scale very terribly backwards. What I mean by this is, if you go on to a Paralog in Chapter 16 or Chapter 17, the difference is going to be somewhat reasonable. But when you go to a Paralog in Chapter 10 or Chapter 9 or something, that Paralog is going to have enemies that are very, very, very high level, which might seem very intimidating and might want you to think that you don't want to go see that Paralog. However, Kana's Paralog is one of the most manageable Paralogs in the game, and because you get Camilla right after Chapter 10, we can visit it and start this start the snowball effect as soon as possible for our units. Now, Kana's Paralog 2, actually also has one more benefit. Kana's Paralog comes with 2 really good capturable units, Lloyd and Llewellyn, who are Berserkers. Now, their stats are actually pretty solid, but Quickies will mostly be using them for their pair-up bonuses, because there's times that we need to hit benchmarks using Berserker pair-ups, but we won't have a free Berserker available, and that'll let us have that'll let us still be able to hit these benchmarks without having to spend a Master Seal earlier than we want to. Next up, our resident godly cab unit, Sophie. Sophie is the archetype of child unit that I'm going to refer to from now on as a replacement unit. These replacement units are extremely good and just a direct upgrade to their fathers, in this case Silas. Sophie's an insanely good unit who can succeed with almost any physical damage mother except for Baruka. Baruka as a mother, this is something important to remember. Baruka as a mother will absolutely tank her child's speed and give a bunch of skill. The recommended mother for Sophie are any physical mothers that aren't named Baruka and also aren't very high demand, like Charlotte. That's why Sophie is red, because Sophie is a great unit, but this means that you're depriving Charlotte from Xander, and Xander being one of our best combat units is not somebody that we want to see leave. Now, it's important to keep in mind that to create a pairing, you're locking a para partner out of an S support with somebody you could really use boosts on. That's why Charlotte isn't here. Now, Mozu is a great mother to a physical unit because she comes with aptitude, like I said, but there's an issue with passing down aptitude. To pass down aptitude, you have to choose that as her specific skill, which locks you out of potentially inheriting quick draw or some other kind of skills she has. This is something to keep in mind. It's not necessarily a detriment, but it is something that's important to note. Getting Sophie early is a great idea for us, but we won't actually be visiting her pair log until after chapter 15. This is so we can pair log chain her into other pair logs, and also because an early promote Silas will be able to do well in combat at least until chapter 15. Sophie's pair log is also a very profitable pair log, netting you 3 different great capture targets and a potential heart seal and an energy drop. These capturables cannot be overstated, since other than the boss, Nicole, who's a Malignite, the 2 important units to capture other than him are Wyvern Lord reinforcements who spawn late in the map towards the left. These guys have such high stats it would make you cum your pants. Their stat line is like the same as Xander, and if you stack them properly, it can relieve you of having to heart seal Xander to get through chapters 19 to 21 comfortably. Alright, moving on, Percy. Percy is the sleeper hit of the child unit squad. He's surprisingly versatile and a very solid flyer that you can give easy inheritance and use all the time. Percy's also one of the units that doesn't share his class with his dad. Percy's dad, Arthur, is a fighter who can turn into a hero or a berserker. Percy is a wyvern rider, can turn into a malignite or wyvern lord. Now, outside his a bit lackluster strength, you will never have worries for Percy because his speed always ends up in the realm where he can double enemies without really needing a great pair up. While his HP might seem a bit shaky, Arthur can pass him down HP plus 5, which, by the way, if you have the option to pass down HP plus 5, pass down HP plus 5, because it's a great skill, and get some great usage out of this skill. For Quickies, since we're going to be backpacking Camilla with Arthur, Percy will become a very solid Wyvern Lord, and we will also be able to get this chapter pretty early, because backpacking means that you get support points every single combat. Now, it's interesting to note that if you decide to give Arthur a wife who's a magic user for whatever reason, you can actually get away with it when it comes to Percy, because Malignite is just that good of a class. Malignite Percy with a magical mother can reach some relatively solid magical benchmarks and gets access to busted skills like Trample, and magical damage on a flyer as always cannot be overstated. Now, while Percy is a great unit in his own right, Arthur's ability to give your best combat unit plus 7 strength and plus 3 speed, it's not something that you sneeze at unless you're allergic to good stats or something. Percy's pair log is one that can quickly mess you up if you are caught off guard, but it's quite easy if you have a strong Nosferatu tanker, so bring your Odins along. Next up, Ophelia Dusk, who somehow has a different last name from her dad. Apparently confusion runs in the family because the whole Exalt family tree makes no fucking sense. Now, Ophelia is kitted to be more of an offensive Dark Mage than her dad, which, if you've watched my Chapter 9 clear, you'll remember Dark Mage has a same class-based speed as an Armor Knight, which isn't a great proposition for a unit trying to one-round enemies. As a result, Ophelia often tends to suck at what the Dark Mage class wants to do, namely Nosferatu tank. However, if she has a very quick mother, such as Elise, if you level her up quickly enough, you can get her out of the rut that is her base speed and into doubling territory in a reasonable amount of time. Now that we've discovered the bad part about Ophelia's pairing, namely Ophelia herself, let's talk about the good part about her pairing. Literally everything else. Ophelia's pair log is the most profitable side chapter in the entire series, coming with 3 different extremely high value tomes, 2 of which you can't even acquire otherwise in Conquest, along with a stat booster in the form of a Spirit Dust. This pair log can single-handedly take Leo into god tier status because the 3 bonus to speed that the horse spirit you get from this chapter just takes him into the right speed tier to get doubling real quickly. As a result, you really want to visit this chapter as soon as is possible. Even if you don't have Leo before you visit this chapter, you can still give these tomes to Odin and make a solid unit. Sorry about that, I had to take a sip of water. This pair log is one of the 2 aforementioned exceptions to the pair log chaining rule. Ophelia's pairing is also important because her mother usually needs to be supporting Odin's Nosferatu tanking with the valuable stats in the form of magic, defense, res, or a little bit of speed. This greatly limits who Ophelia's parents can be to the 4 units mentioned here. So keep in mind. Effie Ophelia is actually a pretty good pairing for Odin, but she often gives more strength to Odin than defense, so often it's just better to give Odin a bunch of magic instead. Alright. Nina, our resident yaoi shipper. Alright. Sorry, I really need some water today. Okay. Speaking of money, Paralog 22, Nina's Paralog is one of the few Paralogs that has a bunch of chests, and a lot of these chests have some pretty cool stuff. The chests contain a goddess icon for plus 4 luck, a partner seal, a shining bow, and 3,000 gold. Partner seal is actually really useful because, as we mentioned, for us, we're going to be pairing Mozu with Niles, so partner seal will let Niles turn into an archer or a sniper. Anyways, Nina for us will have Mozu as her dad because we're going for the Sniper Niles strategy. As you can see, Nina is definitely less magically inclined than her dad, and as a result, her play is usually Bow Knight. Now, if you give her a magical mother like Elise, Nyx, or Felicia, that does change things, but for the most part, physical parents are the way to go. Nina will still run into the problem of always having just piss poor, and I mean golden shower poor HP and defense, but hey, you know, what's new, we're playing Fates. Often, unless your Niles is extremely magically blessed, I recommend having him to go Bow Knight and just use physical damage, since the Shining Bow is often not accurate enough to get him good hit rates on the units he wants to capture, and also just fucks him over if he has weapon triangle disadvantage. As a result, Nina's most recommended mothers are women that give strength on pair-up and also aren't extremely in high demand, like Charlotte. Moving on to a bit of an odd one, Shigure. Shigure, along with male Kana, is the only child unit determined by his mother, Azura. Now, Azura is often doing way more important shit on the battlefield than anybody else, so it can be a bit of a struggle to get her laid within a reasonable amount of time. So as a result, we most likely won't be doing Shigure's Paralog as part of the Paralog change. However, that's actually not that bad because of Shigure's unique stats, which we'll get to soon. Now, Shigure is a very unique unit in Conquest, since along with a heart-sealed Selena or a partner-sealed Laszlo with Selena as his wife, he's one of the very few units that can get access to Falcon Knight, and along with it, Rally Speed. This is the only way to get Rally Speed in this game until you get Rally Man, all the way in Takumi chapter. Shigure is a fantastic support unit because if you get him somewhat late, around chapter 20 or 22, he auto-levels high enough to get Rally Speed and a reasonable staff rank as a Falcon Knight, which also doesn't hurt. It's important to keep in mind that Shigure's Paralog is one of the 3 easiest Paralogs in Conquest along with Dyer and Midori's Paralogs. It's the world's easiest one-turn clear. Too long didn't read, Rally Speed, good. Moving on to the disappointment of our group, Midori. Now, if you played Heroes for a while, you'll be thinking, what's going on with Midori? Isn't she kind of busted? Well, I don't know what kind of Midori you're using in Heroes, because the only Midoris that exist in Heroes are the ones that die for Spendthrift Bow. Oh, give me a second, I gotta do something real quick, I'll be right back. Alright, back to Midori. Now, Midori in Conquest works basically the same as she does in Heroes, as in she basically exists to give you value in every way possible outside of being a good unit herself. In Fates, outside of PvP, you'll never be seeing a Midori put in actual work. While luck stacking and making her a merchant so you can get gold bars out of Profiteer might seem like a good value proposition, I've done the math and the required luck stacking actually takes more money. 300 gold for each gold bar doesn't really get you far in this economy. Midori's main problem is her personal stats and growths, which all focus on skill, luck, and defense, leaving her with jack shit for speed. Midori's Paralog, however, has the added benefit of giving you a Dragon Herb and a capturable enemy adventurer, who coincidentally also sucks but still is a better unit than Midori. This doesn't make her existence not valuable, as her Paralog can actually give you a lot of time that you need to work on supports to further your Paralog chain as hard as possible, or it can just give you that free Dragon Herb, which gets you +1 to all your stats. Our next replacement unit is Soleil. Soleil is a mercenary with an actual speed growth and speed base, unlike Laszlo, who just has a great speed base, which we will actually take full advantage of in Quickies. I hope you guys are ready to see my chapter 13 clear, because it's going to be great. I recommend that if you use her, you try to get her into a pairing that gives her a little bit of bulk, because she always turns into a bit of a hard-hitting glass cannon with great offenses but terrible defense. You could also double down really hard to get her to Brave Sword and just Brave Weapon every unit in the game to death. But that's completely up to you. In addition to this, Soleil's Paralog is also one of the best designed chapters in Conquest that doesn't occur in the main campaign, as a result of its defend-like feel but intense gameplay. This Paralog also comes with the benefit of being very profitable, giving you a Physic, a Draco Shield, and a Friendship Seal if you keep all of the green units alive. Moving on to Ignatius. I won't be spending too much time talking about this guy, since when playing Conquest as male Corrin and not marrying a Corrin sexual, the pairings work out in a way that you always miss out on at least one child unit. In our case, that's going to be Ignatius. For people actually getting Ignatius, it's important to note that he's not actually his dad. Ignatius is actually capable of being pretty fast, and reclassing him will let him work really well as a physically reclassed Effie would, for example. Ignatius' Paralogs, however, is one of the most bullshit Paralogs in all of Conquest, and that's saying something considering the competition we're going to see later on. Valoria. Valoria is in a very weird position when it comes to her situation. For she's a great unit in her own right. Her dad is a backpack, but her pairing doesn't matter regardless of who her mom is. But her pair log is also still garbage. Valoria is a great nuke unit who just does not give a fuck about anything. She will destroy anything in her path, and if she needs to be bulky, the Beast Rune and her defense inherited from Keaton will do her a lot of favors. Keaton, after his promotion, gives his S support partner a staggering 7 strength, 4 speed, and 2 defense. So that's the most important part about this pairing. Who are you pairing Keaton with? In our case, it's going to be Perry. Basically, just give somebody a great pair up and get stonks. Next up, our resident femboy, Forrest. Forrest is another one of those units who doesn't really care who his mom is, because regardless, he'll be able to do what he wants to do, namely late game staff utility and support. As a result, the best pairings for Forrest are the ones that let you give Leo the speed he needs. As long as you don't pair a unit with Leo that doesn't give Leo any good benefits, Forrest will be fine. However, things get interesting when you move on to Forrest's pair log. Along with a chest with a nifty sum of 5,000 gold, Forrest's pair log also has the best capturable unit in the game, Gazak. Gazak takes everything you know about Fates and flips it upside down. You know units with garbage HP. Gazak comes in here with 60 HP. You know units that have a terrible time getting weapon rank, S-rank weapons. You know that axe units have terrible accuracy. Gazak comes with certain blow to have great accuracy with his axes. Gazak is an immaculate late game carry, and his existence by itself boosts Forest pair log to the forefront of good value pair logs in this game. Alright, we're about to hit the final stretch. Let's talk about Sigbert. Sigbert is Xander's son and a decent enough combat unit. However, he has the glaring issue of his pair log being fucking atrocious to play. Sigbert's pair log, Hidden Bravery, has Sigbert stranded in the middle of map with a bunch of strong enemies around him. Not only that, the map is not only route, but it's also activate all dragon veins and route. And the dragon veins are spread across the map and infinitely spawn reinforcements that have Void Curse and don't give EXP too. To top it all off, there's a bunch of really threatening Master Ninjas and Mechanists that can really put the pain on your units. My personal advice with Sigbert is to just pretend he doesn't exist and give Xander a really good pair up, which usually ends up being Charlotte. Last but not least, we reach Dyer. Now, Dyer is Jacob's son, and Quickies is going to have a particularly difficult time getting Jacob laid, considering that Jacob joins us around chapter 16 with terrible stats in every category. However, especially for female porn, Dyer can be a suitable second replacement cav unit for when you inevitably grow tired of having the speed stack on 17 different units and bench Silas. Though Dyer starts off as a troubadour, if you give him a non-magical mother, you can hard seal him into a cavalier and get a very solid combat unit for most of the game. Since Jacob also has the ability to reclass into Paladin, which is what you're probably going to do with him considering how disgustingly strong Paladin Jacob is and how garbage made Butler Jacob is, you can easily pass down an early Defender to Dyer and get him a lot of easy stats. However, if what you need is a good healer, which often ends up being the case considering female core and results in Elise being your only healer, Jacob paired with a magical mother can get you a pretty solid troubadour who's flexible enough for you to decide whether you want a strategist or butler when you promote him. Basically, decide what you want. If you want a healer, go for a magical mother. If you want a beater, then go for a physical mother. Well, that's all I have for this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like or a comment with a suggestion for any content you'd like to see. If you want to see more Quickies, considering subscribing, and, you know, we all know what the bell does. Have a good day, and goodbye.